how are you?
I am doing great.
Good, good. Today we are here with Tiffany Walsh, who's an appraiser, and we're going to talk a little bit about appraisals today and get some back-end information, just some things that maybe the common person at home watching doesn't know, and maybe home buyer, home seller, things like that.
Agents.
Yeah,
Everybody
agents,
involved.
everybody, right? First off, we want to thank Bolt Mortgage, Lauren Ashley, and Matthew Hyde for allowing us this beautiful studio for the podcast. We are going to be talking appraisals in regards to what you do. We'll talk about coastal home values, what to avoid, renovations versus flips, and then as the first-time home buyer, maybe some tricks, some tips, and cost of what that looks like.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds
so
great.
We'll go ahead and get into it.
Yep.
All right. What is a property appraiser, and what made you want to become one?
Honestly, I just kind of fell into it. I got my real estate license in 2000, and it was pretty hard. It was really hard to be an agent and make money. And I had another agent who was working for an appraiser, and that appraiser, they came to me and asked me if I wanted to, join their team and start doing appraisals. And at that time, you didn't have to have any classes, and I think it was $50 or something.
To become an appraiser.
Just a training.
Oh.
Correct.
Wow.
So I in no way planned on doing anything like that. It just kind of happened that way.
That's how the best things happen that way, right?
Yes, but but originally I got my license. I was with Prudential, Gary Green, and Clear Lake, and then I was at the Friendswood office. I worked with Linda Martin on her team for years, and then had the opportunity to join this appraisal.
Yeah.
So I just kind of went from there. I went to work for this appraiser. Things weren't great, so I left his office, and I actually went to work for the real estate book in Friendswood.
Okay.
While I was selling real estate, and I was marketing for him in the Clear Lake area. So it really helped me meet agents, mortgage companies, everybody. And anyways, then I found another appraiser to train under, and that's where I finished my license. And then I did decide to take my test and go on my own.
Okay. So you're on your own completely now, right? You own your own business?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I've had my own appraisal company since 2006.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
So as an appraiser, I kind of typed up some answers here.
Yeah, for sure.
However
you feel comfortable.
I was going to say pretty much it's just to help provide estimates of home value. And this can be in, obviously, estate, divorce. I am hired by mortgage companies, by banks, lenders. There are many, many reasons.
Oh, see, I didn't even think about that because
there are
I know that
many different reasons.
As far as a realtor, we look at you for an appraisal on value when you're selling, but you also do it through divorces, probate,
absolutely,
all of this stuff.
Yes, there sometimes, if you're a homeowner and you own a large parcel of land, you maybe want to section out some of the land and build, or maybe you're going to sell off some land. So I have banks, I do appraisals for that, coming up with values for separating land and everything. Wow. So I do that, yes, and then I help homeowners to determine, obviously, the value. Maybe you, as the agent, you guys are struggling with the comps. That's
like when you have that special house that doesn't look like anything on the block, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
For example, that's what I was working on this morning, trying to help this homeowner figure out, is she going to sell, she has a large parcel of land, or is she going to separate some of the land out?
Right. That makes sense.
So those things. Also, some people hire me to help them for the county taxes. I try not to do that too much. I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to help pull comps. The only thing is that a lot of times when these homeowners go in front of these boards, they probably are not, they really don't know what they're talking about. So I can type up the report and I can give it to you, but if you don't know the information, it's really hard for you to
be able to stand up for yourself in that situation,
Right.
or kind of debate that for
I say,
yourself.
would you go to court without a lawyer?
Right.
No, you would not. So.
Right. Same thing. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yes, I do. You know, I have been doing quite a few estate. So that could be for the probate for the court, or it could be maybe a family member is going to buy out another family member and they're trying to determine a value. But any of those situations, I always tell everybody, I can do that. However, whenever they go to refinance or purchase the home, for example, with Bolt, then Bolt will then order the appraisal through the bank or lender.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
They cannot use mine.
Right. Okay. So,
And most agents know that, but sometimes that's not always, that information is not always passed on to the owner. And so.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So, going back to the probate, because I just had this conversation with Title in regards to like the probate, because we talked about where if, let's say, for instance, somebody didn't agree to selling the home and you mentioned they could potentially buy the other heir out or whatever the thing may be. And so that would be where you could kind of come in and help.
Yes. So either the court will recommend that it's done, or the CPA or the attorney involved.
Okay.
I mean, I've had, oh my gosh, I'm just multiple people or different parties hire me in those situations. And one thing that I've always like to mention to everybody in a divorce or an estate, if there are multiple people involved, meaning the heirs, or in a divorce situation, everybody has to agree that I'm going to do the appraisal for the court.
Gotcha.
Because if it is not agreed upon, then the court might reject it and say, we are not going to acknowledge this report. We didn't hire that person. We didn't.
Oh, I see.
Whatever the reason. That does happen quite a bit. Because unfortunately, a lot of times people who are in the midst of a divorce, what's the largest thing they want to fight over? The house. And they'll hurry up and call me. Well, you know, my best friend's sister, who's an agent, she told me to call or something. And I'm like, I appreciate the business. However, we have to do it in the right time. And all parties have to agree. Yeah. So
that's probably the hardest part, is getting two parties to agree that don't want to agree about a lot of stuff.
Right. And then also it depends on what the mediator has decided. I mean, there's just so many different
moving parts. Yeah.
Lots of different things. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
All right. What are some myths behind what you do?
I would say probably that I am going to report to the county.
Oh.
A lot of homeowners are like, are you emailing, Galveston County? Are you sending this information to GCAD? I do not work for Galveston County. Okay. They have their own assessors. I am strictly, for example, if you're the agent, you hire me for an appraisal, the report goes to you.
Correct.
You own the report.
Right.
For example, Bolt Mortgage, if they hire me for an appraisal, the report goes to them. That's who pays me. Right. The other thing is that a lot of buyers and agents think that they should get access to the appraisal through me, and that's not the way it works.
They would get it through the lender.
They get it through the lender.
Because the lender is the owner of it.
Correct. And a lot of buyers and agents get very upset with me, and I say, it's against the law. Right. The laws changed in 2009. Right. Maybe they haven't been in the business long enough. Who knows? Right. But there are a lot of people who get very frustrated with me. I had an agent over the weekend who was texting me, telling me that I had to send her a paid invoice so that she could send it to the title company for them to put it on the HUD. That's not at all how it works. Right. I said, you need to contact your loan officer. Right, your lender. So, yes. So I would say that, or another thing is a lot of people, because I am taking photos, they get very upset sometimes when you take photos. So the photos, again, they simply go on the report, and whoever ordered the report owns the report, and that's who sees the photos. Right. I am not publishing photos somewhere.
Right.
They go into my electronic file, and then that's it.
Right.
So, but that a lot of people, they get confused.
That's good that you're giving us that information, because there may be agents or people that are out there that this could eliminate that conversation, that argument, knowing this, or they may want to even conduct business in a different way.
Right.
So,
well, and a lot of agents and owners, I would say everybody involved, forget to, especially if you have rental properties, they forget to inform the tenants that I have, and the banks require, say for example, a landlord is refinancing their house. They have to take I have to take photos inside for the bank or the mortgage company.
Right.
That's the fact. But I have had tenants who get very upset
because nobody told me.
Yeah. No, nobody told them.
And
so
now,
I do
and now all my stuff
that.
is on display, right?
Yes.
Do realtors or can realtors have an impact on home value?
I know. I said yes and no. I'm like, this is a hard one, because I would say if the agents are helpful in, hey, let me help you set up the appraisal appointment. You can look on MLS, or I tell everybody, all agents, to please type up, and homeowners, please type up a list of upgrades or updates that you have done. Right. So now on that list, do not add, because I've had homeowners do this where they will add what they think the house is worth.
Right.
That is not at all
what
we're asking for.
Right.
So, yes, because when I go speak to offices, as I explain to agents, because some agents say, well, why does the homeowner need to type up a list? Right. Well, why wouldn't they?
Right. Tell me what you've done.
I said, if you have an appraiser who's coming from the other side of town, who has never been to South Shore Harbor, Heritage Park, any of these neighborhoods, they don't know what the original builder looked like, or the specs were of those builders. Right. I probably do, but don't assume that appraiser knows. Right. And we have buyers now coming from all over. Right. Yeah. Right? They didn't grow up here. They don't know the area. Don't assume that they know that, none of the houses came with granite. Right. None of the houses came with, like they all had vinyl, like sheet vinyl flooring or something like that. Right. Like that was the standard. Don't assume that. So why not provide them the information? Why not make the information easier for them to access as well? And then also, as an agent, what is not helpful, I do not need a 30-page CMA. Yeah. Yeah. Nobody needs that.
As a realtor, do you have access to that?
What do you mean? Like a CMA book?
Because are you still a realtor? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you can pull.
All appraisers have access to MLS.
To the comps.
We all have the same information. Okay. Yes. Now I do ask my agents, hey, does your seller or did you type up a list of updates? Can you email those to me? I do not want a packet left at the property. Right. So actually when COVID hit, the banks said, no, we don't want you picking up paperwork at that time. Right. But also now everything, we all have electronic files. Mm-hmm. So, okay, if you leave that big CMA, I have to take it apart and then I have to scan it. And then a lot of them are those, the hole punch things. Well, then it gets jammed. It's just a mess.
So electronic. Again. And we're killing trees, so let's just not.
Honestly, most of the agents, I say, just shoot me a list of your updates. Like, just send me a PDF list. Yeah. And then also, hey, by the way, I was looking at these 3 comps when I listed the house. Mm-hmm. That's it. Yeah. Yeah. That's all I asked for. Right. Now, what is not helpful is when the agents who, they will call or text me and be very demanding. Well, you need to go out there at this day and time, and you need to have the report back by this day because we're closing on this day. That's not the way it works. Right. I work for the bank. Right. I don't work for the agent or the buyer. Right. I actually don't. Yeah. And I don't actually have to tell you when the report is due. Right. Normally I'm nice, and I'm like, oh, yeah, the report's due Thursday or whatever. Right. Oh, it's due at the end of the week. Right. But when the agents are like that, I'm not nice, and I just say, please get with the loan officer.
Yeah, you get more bees with honey.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Okay. New home sales versus resale homes. Is one easier than the other? Does one take more time than the other?
I mean, new homes are probably much easier as long as it is, for example, like a track builder, right? I mean, if it's Newmark, Lennar, David Weekley, any of these neighborhoods going in, Westland Ranch, we have Westwood. There's plenty of comps. Those are pretty easy. But now when you get into new construction of custom new construction, because I do a lot of those. Okay. So I do a lot where the banks hire me before they've even built the house, right? So, it's proposed construction, new construction, and these might be like custom construction on acreage. So you've got that, and then
that's nice.
If they're in Santa Fe, well, now we're going to build a metal shop. Right. We might have an apartment. Right. Now all those are going to be much more time consuming.
Are you seeing more compounds pop up in?
Yes. I do a lot in Santa Fe, Manville. Okay. The property I was just at this morning, that's exactly what the homeowner has. Okay. And yes. Yeah. And I'm not a fan of having 2 or 3 tiny houses in the back of your house. Yeah. Because normally, some of them are really nice. Yeah. There are some that are nice, but there are some that it's like a Morgan Stanley or whatever those Morgan buildings are. Yeah. And they threw a toilet in or something weird. Right. I just call those storage. Right. Yeah. Because if it is considered quarters, you're supposed to have a kitchenette, and it should be of similar quality of the main house. Right. That's what people don't always get correct. Yep. So with that. Yep.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And what about resale homes? Are those, you find those more difficult or just?
Well, I think resales, there's more people involved.
Gotcha.
New
versus the bank and builder and the
where new construction, I get the order. I do a ton around here, right? So I typically text or I email the new home salesperson. Hey, can I get the survey, plot plan, the floor plan, and then that's it. Yep. They shoot me the information and we're done. For the resales, there's a lot more emotionally involved, right. I think. Because now you've got 2 agents, you have a seller, you have a buyer,
then the actual people also have like emotional attachments to homes, things like that.
Right, so. And they a lot of times want to be there.
Yep.
So, yes.
All right. Would you say there's a difference in coastal homes versus city properties in regards to value? And does local market trends in Houston affect the appraisal value?
So, this one's a tough one. I say that because Galveston is just a completely different.
It's its own beast.
It's a completely different market than up here.
Correct. And up here, when she's saying up here, we are actually in League City.
Yes.
Yeah, we're in League City, so we have coastal as well as on the mainland.
On the mainland. Yes.
Seabrook, Kemah, things like that are also
correct. Yes, and Galveston's market has totally changed because during COVID, a lot of corporations, a lot of big companies went in and bought all these Airbnbs, correct. A lot of multifamily units. Correct. And so right now, unfortunately, the market down there is very oversaturated because those people are not renting their properties like they assumed they would. Correct. And so now they're trying to sell them. Right. So I just did a triplex 2 weeks ago down there. Normally we would have probably, 10 to 20 active listings. Mm-hmm. There were like 60.
Wow.
And only 20 sales.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
the market is,
So, and then the other thing, down there, a lot of the loan officers, I guess FHA was running a program, I'm sure it's still going on, that a maybe a first-time home buyer, I can't remember the specifics, but the buyer can buy like a triplex or duplex, live in one side for X amount of years, and then rent the other sides out.
Correct. Yeah.
So I have done several of those down in Galveston, but the problem with that is you've got homes that are 100 years old. And what's on the outside of the house? Rotting wood and peeling paint.
Right. Yeah. That's very much.
And everyone gets mad at me. And what do you expect? The house is 90 years old. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but this is what FHA's rules are. Correct. We have to follow their guidelines. And that's where we're at on that. So, and I was going to say, okay, the next part, do local market trends in Houston affect the appraisal? Oh, okay. You're saying like Houston,
Galveston's its own little beast, and then like let's say we get inner city Houston, like
right. I'm not sure on that.
Okay,
because I feel like we are our own. I mean, we have the Clear Lake market. You've got Dickinson, Santa Fe. They kind of have a similar little market niche, and then you've got Clear Lake and everything in Lake City, and then Friendswood. They're their own little market. And then you've got Pearland. Which, Pearland, it's, again, it's kind of like Clear Lake and Santa Fe and everything mixed together.
Right.
In one.
Yeah. This is true.
Because you've got homes on acreage, but then you
and then you got old Pearland and you have new Pearland.
Yes, and then you have Shadow Creek Ranch, a large PUD out there.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. What are some things to look for when it comes to value? What are some things to avoid?
Okay, so one thing that I come into, unfortunately, is people who have maybe built quarters or apartments, whatever you want to call them. Mother-in-law quarters. A lot of homeowners get very upset because they don't realize that square footage is not included with the main house.
Okay.
So I would say, and I've done quite a few recently. I just did one in Santa Fe. The man built a custom construction home. He spent a lot of money, and he was like, "Wait a minute, nobody ever told me this." Oh. Well, why would the builder tell you?
Right.
I don't even know if
right.
I mean, a builder should know that, kind of, but I don't know if they would, because they don't.
Right.
They just build the house. They don't actually sell them. So.
Right.
That's probably one of the things, but to bring value, I mean, square footage, obviously. Adding square footage is going to be the number one thing. Bathrooms, garages, things like that. Okay. But that is the one thing that people don't realize about the apartments.
So if somebody, I'm glad you kind of said this, because if somebody has, let's say they buy a small house on a parcel of land, and then they turn around and they build something behind it with the intention to get rid of this, this would not have its own value?
No, that's different. Okay. You're saying like, okay, I buy 2 acres and it has like, say,
a little baby house on
it. A small,
small
house up front. So the small house would then be the quarters, because the main house is going to be, like, the county is going to tax you on that main house.
The bigger house. Okay.
Yes, gotcha. And then your mortgage is going to be on that main house.
Gotcha.
I had a gentleman.
So in the story that you stated, they have the main house still, and then they built an additional custom, and Correct. So they put. Got it. Okay, gotcha.
Yes, they did this 3-car garage with an apartment.
I see. So then that did not.
Right, and so he thought
that would bring value to.
Right, he thought this 800 square feet.
Yeah.
Well, when I go to sell my house, wouldn't I add everything together? Right. And that's not the way it works. Gotcha. And MLS actually changed that. They have it on MLS to where it is, they have garage apartment, they have quarters, they have all that listed now.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they have that. But, for example, I had a homeowner in Alvin, and it was a home maybe on an acre maybe a little less. And, I mean, he built it's cute. I mean, it's a really cute little white farmhouse kind of thing, 2-bedroom, 1 bath, I think it was, or 1.5 bath. So, I mean, I think they spent probably a good $300,000. Oh, wow. I mean, it was a really nice house, but, and I said to him, I was like, it would have been in his best interest to cut that piece of land out and sell that house. But unfortunately, they had to tie into the main houses like septic and some other stuff, and so they would not be able to do that. No, but you're not going to get dollar for dollar for that adorable little house that he just built.
That's tough. Yeah. Well, and I feel like there's a client for everything, right? So there's going to be a client it'll
Absolutely.
be perfectly, but you're right. There's the value of it.
But the problem is that in those scenarios, and it happens every day. I mean, I get the call every day. People say, okay, well, land, A plus B plus C. The land costs this. The house should cost this to build. Then I have my shop or quarters or whatever, so my full value should be this. And that's not the way it works. Appraisals are done on sales comparison. It has to be what has sold on MLS, right? Yeah. So this is a big problem with new construction. I deal with this all the time because homeowners get very upset, and they're like, do you know the cost to build? Well, the cost is a lot more now. Yeah. But unfortunately, if the comps don't support it, then the homeowner or whoever's building has to come up with a cash difference.
Right, for the value.
Yeah. So,
about some things
to avoid.
Agreed. High five on that one.
I'm like, I just don't even. Yeah. And over the last month, I have done 3 homes with solar panels. Okay. One of the situations, the homeowner, they bought the home with the solar panels, and I'm like, good for you, great job.
Right.
Okay. The other property, I think they spent close to $140,000 on solar panels. They are not going to get that back.
No, they're not.
Right. No, and then they get even more upset when I explain to them that on solar panels, if they are not paid in full, okay, because homeowners, they are not honest.
Right.
And you
Correct.
say, are they paid for? Well, of course they're paid for. No. Do you have a monthly payment? Like, did you get a credit card or some sort of, I know these solar panel companies did these loans for people. Right. And then they say, oh, well, yeah, I pay on
X number of amount.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that they're not paid
it's
off.
Not paid off, right.
And a bank considers that personal property, and they will not allow me to add that to the appraisal.
Right.
Okay. So I had a person that they hired me to determine what they're going to list the house for. The agent called me and had me go out. The solar panels were not paid off. I couldn't even find any comps with solar panels because that's what because the homeowner said, okay, if it's in my interest to pay the solar panels off before they list, they would do that. And I said, there's no comps. Yeah. There's no comps. So I told him, I don't think you should pay them off. Right. Just leave it the way it is, and then you just pay for them at closing, like he was planning. And that was his plan. So for him, it worked.
Right.
Now
but it doesn't always work, and it's a lot.
Because the other person.
Yeah,
I mean,
I know.
I think he thought he was going to get an extra $100,000 for the house because of these solar panels.
Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of them do believe. Oh, I paid $50,000, $100,000, whatever the amount is. Yes. And the reality of it is, no, you're actually going to pay that when you go to close. It's not going to. It's not going to. You're not. That's not going to be a thing of value. A tool for value.
And so the bank considers them personal properties. Right. And then if you do lease solar panels, a homeowner, if they're leasing them, you have got to give all that information to your agent. Because I have dealt with many agents who didn't know anything about a solar panel lease.
Right.
And then the buyers didn't qualify.
No, yeah.
Because
That
then
happens
they have to
take over the lease.
Possibly take over the lease.
Or have them removed and get a new roof.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's painful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
We joke about this a lot, but do pools in Southern Texas add value to a home? What are the strongest renovations, upgrades, and additions to raise value, if any? And how can you tell if a home is a flip?
Okay. First part. For the pool, absolutely. I mean, typically most pools will bring value, but you have to know your market and your area. Okay?
Right.
If you are in a neighborhood where nobody has pools,
and you're the only one on the block, your house just shut up.
well, I mean, but the problem is then we've got to find comps of homes.
Oh, and there's
with
nobody
pools.
with a pool.
Correct.
In the neighborhood that sells.
Yes, but now if say you are selling in Friendswood, okay, and you have an $800,000 house or $900,000, and you don't have a pool.
Yeah. Right.
That's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they're going to go to the next street over where all these other homes all have pools. So, you really should stay in line with your neighborhood. And that has to do with the cost of the pool. You have to be smart about it. You do not need to go spend $150,000 on a pool if your home is only worth $400,000.
And I think that's what people do that. Yeah.
I've had homeowners contact me, and I'm like, wait a minute, your house was worth $400,000. You're spending $150,000. Now we're at $550,000, and no, the comps are at $475,000.
Right.
So no, let's scale it back.
Yeah, and I think
you don't need a $50,000 outdoor kitchen or.
Yeah.
I mean, now unless you have a property on Clear Lake,
on the coast,
and you are, a $3, $4, $5 million property. Yeah, you do need a pool like that, and you do need an outdoor kitchen. Absolutely. In those scenarios, those are the ones. Yes, you would need that. So on that. Okay, renovation, upgrades, and additions. I would always say, and again, be smart, do what your neighbors are doing. I mean, I have homeowners, they're like, hey, I'm refinancing right now, but we're going to start, doing upgrades, and we're going to sell in a couple of years. Okay, well, look at all your neighbors' houses they're selling. What are they doing? What I'm saying, and nobody uses Corian anymore, but I use that as an example of, say, a neighborhood, everybody had Corian counters. Right. Well, don't go put marble in.
Right.
Don't, you know what I'm saying? Oh, well, they have that. I'm going to go one step better. Well, if you want to put it in and enjoy it for the next 5 years, then do it. Absolutely. Right. But if nobody else in the neighborhood is doing it,
and you're not going to sell.
And you're doing it to sell, you're probably not going to get your money back.
Right.
Now, my parents built a house, I don't know, has it been 20 years? 18 years ago, in a neighborhood in Alvin. My dad was like, no, I want granite. Okay, so we closed on the house. It had Formica. Everybody in the neighborhood had Formica. And it's fine. My dad put granite in, and now when we go to sell, absolutely, it'll be a benefit because most of the homes in there have upgraded. Well, and a lot of them have upgraded to granite.
Oh, gotcha.
You see what I'm saying?
So now
and
it's more.
If you're trying to compete with the newer construction, it will be in line with that. And then, for example, my dad didn't want any carpet, so they ripped all their carpet out and they put in, the plank flooring. So we're already.
But they
in line.
Enjoyed it when they.
That's right.
They did it to enjoy the home better.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and then I just said, be smart about, for example, if you are in a neighborhood and most people are putting in vinyl plank flooring, well, don't go to Floors and Decor and get super high-end, hand-scraped wood floors. Right. Something that is triple the price of what most of the people are doing in the neighborhood.
Right, because it's not gonna really be able to add any value that way.
Yes, and then regarding the flip, typically you can tell on the quality of the products that are used.
Right.
And they normally, a lot of times, they don't, they get about 98% done.
Mm-hmm.
So
correct.
It's like they'll not finish the trim or just little things.
That you can catch, that you've been doing long enough that you can catch it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. How does an appraiser handle a discrepancy between value and sales price, and what should a homeowner and buyer need to know in regards to that?
So a lot of times what will happen is the square footage is wrong.
Okay.
Meaning that the house was measured wrong, maybe from the county.
Okay.
Could be one thing.
Okay.
Now, I had a situation over here in Friendswood where the listing agent, she listed it as what Realist had. Okay, I understand that. It just populates the information.
Right.
However, if she had gone into the past 3 sales, okay, there was a listing with the actual builder when the house was built, with the floor plan, and it showed the square footage.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so the buyer's agent, they were like, hey, we're in our option period. We don't think the square footage is right. Like, we don't even want to order the appraisal. Like, can you just come measure the house? Because they were like, we think it's wrong.
Yeah.
Because the buyer's agent found the past listing information.
Gotcha.
The present listing agent, I don't know. She said she didn't see it.
Right.
How can you not see it?
Right.
I mean, it's right there. I say if you're the listing agent, you need to do your due diligence.
Yes.
You don't have to hire me. You can hire somebody else.
Right.
I don't care who you hire. But I would recommend that you hire somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, I just had an agent called me on the way here. I've got to go over to Tuscan Lakes because she's saying that she sold this same floor plan a couple of years ago, and that house was $2,600, but GCAD has it at $2,900. That's a big difference.
Yeah.
And so that's typically what happens is the square footage in that. And that's why I say, like, agents need to do their homework. And unfortunately, you have a lot of agents who do not also know how to pull comps.
Yeah, this is true.
And so they price the home, and they're pricing it off of the wrong information.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So.
All right. So let's say I'm a first-time home buyer. What are some tips that I need to know, and how much does an appraisal normally cost? Another question I know.
Oh, okay. So as the home buyer, always remember that I work for the bank or the lender. And so whatever the price is,
that's out of your hands.
I have no part of that.
Right.
So, for example, if you go to a mortgage company and the mortgage company charges you $700 for the appraisal, okay, they then order the appraisal through an ordering company, an AMC, okay, I get a portion of that.
Okay.
I could say, for example, get $400.
Right.
And then the ordering company, they keep $300.
Right.
I don't know. They're all different. So that's why I can never discuss what my fee is with the buyer.
Right. Because it doesn't, it's like, yeah.
Well, because I actually was called out one time by a real estate agent.
Oh.
She sent me a text message and she said, you charged my son $750, blah, 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 and all this stuff. And I'm like, who is your son? What is going on? Like, hold on.
Is your son a bank?
Right. Well, and then I go back and I look at it and I was like, oh gosh, I did that appraisal for like $350.
Yeah.
So they kept the difference, but I couldn't even tell her that.
Right.
And I just said, okay, you realize that the AMC, the ordering company, they keep a portion. I only got about half.
Right.
Okay? Or maybe a little more.
Right.
She did not know that.
Yeah. There's some tips that I need to know.
Yeah. Because I wanted to add to that is that when you're working with buyers, they need to understand that maybe they're shopping online or shopping rates, but what they don't get is that if you're not working with a mortgage company who is in this area or maybe who's familiar with this area or doesn't do a lot of business in this area, then they might not have that many appraisers registered on their list. Okay. Every mortgage company, every AMC that orders appraisals has to have, I am registered. Like if I go on like TALCB or TREC, okay, through that system, like you wouldn't be able to see it, I pull it up. I have a whole list of all the AMC companies. They pay the state to register me. Okay, and I don't know if it's $10 or $20, who knows. Right. But if you have a mortgage company who doesn't do business in this area,
they're never going to pull you.
Well, no, they're not. And they're probably going to pull somebody from Houston because that's exactly what happened to an agent. It was a property in Leak City, and I mean, I'm like, I'm 3 miles from there. Right. No, I never, got a call about this house, and they pulled somebody from the Heights. Wow. And he did not know anything about this builder. Right. And it was not
important.
Good.
Yeah, it's important.
I mean, I think I don't know if the whole thing busted out. I just told her, I said, your buyer needs to use a mortgage company, a local. I told her to call Bolt. Honestly, I did. Yeah. I said, you need to call them because they have appraisers in this area that are registered that know the area.
Right, and that they work in this area every day.
Correct. Yes, so that was very important. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, then that leads to my who picks hires and appraiser.
That's what it was. I skipped to that. That's what it was. So, and that's what I was going to say, a lot of people still don't even know how an appraiser is picked.
Right, and that's why we wanted to invite you today to speak, because I think that the general public, we don't, and then when they're in the middle of everything, there's so many moving parts, and they don't, they hear the word appraisal, they hear the word appraiser, they know somebody's coming to the house, things like that, but they don't really know the bulk of what it is that you do, how value works, all of the different things, and the difference between the sales price and a value, right? Because a lot of people think that those things are intertwined. The house is $350,000. It should be appraised at $350,000, and sometimes those don't meet.
Correct.
And
depending on the comps.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so.
Well, and I was going to say with that, let me explain. So a buyer, you guys put in an offer. It is accepted. It's now a contract. So a buyer, for example, say they're working with Bolt Mortgage. Okay, what happens next is then Bolt Mortgage has to put it through their ordering system. Right. Okay. So a lot of people, they will start texting me and be like, hey, I think you're getting an order for this appraisal. I mean, I've had, like, they will say, oh, well, the ordering company sent me a text message with your name and number. And I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about, Right. I mean, I had one yesterday. I had a phone call from the listing agent. Well, get this. The order had just been emailed to me. I hadn't even accepted it yet. And they had already, I guess, assumed I was accepting it, and they had already emailed my information to the listing agent and told the listing agent to contact me. She was very nice, thank goodness. And I said, oh, my gosh, I said, hold on, I'm not even at my desk. And then I look on my phone, and I see that I did have an order. And I told her, I said, hey, I'm going to get back to my desk. Can I call you like in an hour and figure out what's going on? So the ordering company had already sent my information out, which so they're supposed to wait 24 hours. Okay. Is what I have been told. I don't know if that's correct or not, but I have been told that they're supposed to wait 24 hours prior to sending my information out so that I have time to print the order out, process it and get it scheduled and figure out what I'm going to do. Right. So that's what happens is now not so much Bolt Mortgage, but other mortgage companies, I would say another thing that people don't know, agents, a lot of people, is that they say the mortgage company, so they can use different AMCs or different ordering companies.
Okay.
Okay? So say, for example, they told their buyer, I'm going to charge you $750.
Right.
Let's just use that number. Okay. Well, this mortgage company, I can go to this ordering company. They're going to charge me $600 to do the appraisal. This one's going to charge me $800. This one's only going to charge me $550. So sometimes they will go with the
$550
cheaper one.
And so
And
that they can keep more.
they keep the difference. And then the problem is that what quality are you actually getting?
Right.
Because then what happens is this cheaper company, they then send out an email to, say, 20 appraisers within a 30-mile radius. What's your quickest turn time and your lowest fee?
I see. Yep.
Well, you get what you paid for.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
But, for example, like this one agent I was helping here in League City, you know, that wasn't fair. You know, that was not fair to the buyer because I know what they did.
Yeah.
And that's what I told her. I said, if I was that buyer, I would demand that they need to do a reconsideration of value. They need to order a new appraisal because this buyer has spent all this money.
Yeah.
I mean, do you actually have that recourse? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
You know,
But if you don't ask, the answer's always no.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I felt really bad because the home, I felt like the value was supported. However, the appraiser that did it, he was not familiar with that builder.
Right.
And I'm very familiar with them.
Yeah.
And the homeowner had purchased the home and then done all these upgrades, and he was giving no credit to what they had done. And so, and that's, you know, what me and the agent were discussing.
Yeah.
But it is upsetting because, again, a buyer has spent all this money, and I didn't feel like they got a good report.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that is...
Yeah, and I think
that's bothersome.
I think when the discrepancy comes, it really is up to coming back and saying, you know, communication is key, right? And so I think sometimes we can have those conversations in a polite manner that says, hey, you know, I know that you're in the Heights and this is League City, like, you know, can we maybe take another?
And I did help the agent type up something on her rebuttal. And like I explained to her, I said, you do not need a 2 or 3 page email.
Right.
Let's be, you know, bullet points to the point, you know, why comps 1 through 3 maybe were not ideal. But also, a lot of people don't realize that there are specific lenders. You know, I have some lenders, and they want 2 comps. They might want 1 comp within 90 days, 2 comps within 6 months.
Okay.
Sometimes those aren't the best comps.
Right. Right.
But if I have to use them, I have to use them.
Right.
And so a lot of times agents don't realize that there are certain guidelines that we have to follow.
Yeah.
To do the job.
To give the report that they're requesting.
Correct.
Right.
If not, they're just going to send it right back to me and make me redo it.
Right. That makes sense.
So that's kind of one of those things.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you. Is there? We're gonna tell them how to connect if they need your services.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And how they can hire you for the different things that you can do, and how to connect if you have any social or anything that would be a time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Okay, I'm Tiffany Walsh with Bay Area Appraisals, and you can reach me at 281-703-7151, or my email is tiffanyb1@msn.com.
And as always, I'm Sabrina Calvillo, Realtor here, and I'm at thebusylittlebee.com. And I just want to thank you so much for your time today and coming to Bolt Mortgage, and it was... Thank you for agreeing. We met at the thing at UTR, and somebody had kept saying appraiser, and then when I saw you, I was like, So I do appreciate all your time and coming in and taking time to help us.
All right. Thank you.
It was a pleasure meeting you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.